What's something you learned embarrassingly late in life? When I was a teenager, I posted a status online that said I was jacking off. I thought that meant you were just bored and wasting time, until my older sister messaged me, horrified. When I was a teenager, I thought the expression to eat someone out meant the same thing as to chew someone out. Unfortunately, I was educated on this after I told someone in a church that I wasn't expecting to be eaten out that morning at breakfast. I was 17 LMAO. That a prostitute doesn't actually sell a piece of their body. Backstory. My mom and I were watching the scene from Titanic where Jack tells Rose that he painted a one-legged prostitute. I asked my mom what a prostitute was and she told me, it's someone who sells their body for money. I could not fathom why someone would sell their leg for like $30. Lol, that was just a perfect confluence of unrelated information to confuse you. It was a completely logical connection to make. I was like 22, working at a restaurant making myself a salad, and I asked the chef for bumps and he stared at me for like 60 solid seconds trying to figure out what I wanted. I explained to him I wanted bumps for my salad. I have all the rest of the toppings but now needed bumps. Guys, my family told me croutons were called bumps my entire life. I called my dad that night and confirmed that bumps are indeed actually called croutons. I live near the hospital for joint diseases. When I was a kid, I thought it was a special hospital for people who had two different diseases at the same time. Person with multiple diseases here. I will raise this at the next meeting with the hope of adopting it. Either Mick Jagger's name was Mick Jagger, and people just never said his first name for some reason. Yeah. Can I order a Mick Jagger meal, large? This is something my little sister did through high school. We're about 8 years apart, so we never overlapped in school. She's always been a straighter student, and I found out she worked extra hard because she wanted to catch up to me in school, so we could be in school at the same time. I almost cried. That's actually adorable. I learned that pork and beans are not called cowboy beans. I was 18 and asked a grocery store clerk to help me find the cowboy beans. We were looking everywhere and I was getting frustrated because I know that every store carries these beans. After a while I pick up a pork and beans can with a picture and say, "See, it looks just like this." He says, "You mean pork and beans?" Then I realize that my mom called them that so that I would eat them. The look of disappointment from that grocery store clerk haunts me to this day. My sister was in her 50s when she found out the meaning of, "You have an addictive personality." She thought after all these years of therapy that it meant that people were addicted to her personality. We laugh hysterically when we talk about this, in a very sad way. My dad was fond of framing questions to my brother and or me regarding just what on earth we were doing, up to age 10 or so, when it no longer seemed necessary, using the term "pray tell," asterisk as in, "What are you doing with the tools, pray tell?" I presumed a pratel was a gentle equivalent to goofball or dummy. One day I corrected my brother about some misconception he had, addressing him as, "You pratel." "What did you call him?" asked Dad, who happened to be nearby. "A pratel. You call us that all the time." "I do?" "Yeah. You say. What is that supposed to be, pratel?" I'd never seen him laugh through a facepalm before. That you don't have to stand in the shower while the water warms up. How long did you torture yourself with that? I thought that horses had toes until I was 22. I thought the hoof was a horseshoe, and the toes were tucked inside. How did I learn how wrong I was, you ask? I was walking past a cavalry museum and saw a horse statue and loudly remarked, "It must hurt so bad when they fold a horse's toes to put them into the shoe." Dozens of horse enthusiasts turned and looked at me with wild bewilderment in their eyes. This one absolutely made me giggle. Just the visual of this happening is fantastic. You don't have to rip the plastic top off of your new deodorant with your teeth or pliers or anything. You can just turn the base until it comes up enough to just take it off. Oh my God. I should return this master's degree to the university. When I was in college, 20 seconds of a year old, I was getting ready to go out and it hit me like a lightning bolt. If you just thread the small end of the belt through your belt loops all the way around, literally any belt can fit your pants. Because up until then, I thought sometimes I just had belt loops that were too small for certain belt buckles. I ran out to my friends and was like, "Guys, check this out," as I proceeded to demonstrate for them what I had just learned. I genuinely thought they'd be excited for me. It was then I learned that everyone else on Earth knew the right way to wear a belt except my dumb ass. Unbelievable how many times up until then I spent trying to jam the buckle side in first and coming to the conclusion I just needed bigger belt loops. They let you into college? I'm from Mississippi, and until I was 18 I thought that everyone else in the country counted with their own state. I.e., instead of 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, they would count 1 Nevada, 2 Nevada, or 1 Maryland, 2 Maryland, etc. That bonsai are not a species of tree, but a way to grow them. Any tree can be a bonsai. I didn't know that. I thought that prima donna was prima donna, and that it meant everything before the singer Madonna, and just assumed she was some kind of universal queen. I was probably 21 or 22 when I learned that whole milk is only 3% fat. I always thought it was 100, and when I saw reduced as being 2% I thought, why wouldn't they do 50% or somewhere in the middle? Things aren't supposed to start to get blurry at about 15 to 20 feet. Learned I needed glasses at like 26 from one of these threads. Yes, people, you are supposed to be able to see individual leaves on trees. Hope someone else can be helped like I was. I'll never forget the first time I looked up into the night sky after I got glasses, and realized that you can, in fact, see the moon clearly. I assumed people who depicted it in art were taking creative license BC. They knew it should look like that for some reason, and that the human eye was incapable of seeing the moon without also seeing 2 other, blurrier moons, sort of overlapping it. It blew my mind. When people say quote unquote, I thought they were saying quote unquote. The saying is, nip it in the bud, and not in fact nip it in the butt. That pineapples grow on the ground, and not in a tree. When you're an adult, well, you shouldn't buy shoes that are a little loose, in case you get taller. When I was 10 I thought the word masturbate meant contemplate. So I told my math teacher that I needed more time to masturbate my math problem. Also, when I was 15 I learned that a woman's eggs were not the same size as chicken eggs. I thought periods were so bloody because the chicken-sized egg was stretching them out. I didn't know tortilla chips were made out of tortillas until I was 20 years old and saw the line cook at my job cut up a tortilla and throw it in the deep fryer. Why I was really young, my sister told me she threw her guts up. So I was really afraid of vomiting my entire insides up for years. I thought sedan was a car brand until I was 22. While watching Game of Thrones, I asked my husband when dragons went extinct. He had to pause the show for that one. Not me but my mom. waiting for the shower to be warm before stepping in. She grew up with a bathtub most of her life, and didn't get a shower until she moved out of my grandparents' place in her 20s. She was apparently talking to a coworker about the winter weather one morning. While lamenting, she goes, "And don't you just hate getting into a cold shower on these cold days? It takes so long for the water to get warm." Coworker: Cheryl, you know you can just wait until the water gets warm, then hop in. My parents were divorced the whole time and my mom was not, in fact, taking a vacation LMAO. I thought ponies were just baby horses until the age of 23. Edit. Until I was 23, I didn't think horses aged like turtles. I'm dumb, but not that dumb. You fool. Learned this yesterday, actually. Apparently you need to RSVP to events even if you will not be attending. It's an abbreviation for the French words meaning roughly, please respond. That all the places in France were not named after wines. Some were named after cheeses. The D in the Disney logo was a stylized capital letter and not a backwards G. In the last year I found out peanut butter is brown. I'm 34. And horrendously colorblind, if that wasn't obvious. Edit. I thought it was green. This reminds me of a deaf Redditor who learned quite late in their adolescence that farts aren't naturally silent. I used to think that the Diet Coke bottles on the side of the road which were half full of pale yellow liquid were unfinished Diet Cokes that had been bleached by the sun. About 2 years ago I saw one of these bottles being ejected from a truck and I realized the awful truth. I'm 53. I was taught it's fine to flush tampons down the toilet, and would even flush pads and sponges when I'd clean the bathroom. I didn't learn that it was a huge asterisk no until sometime in my mid to late 20s. I'm surprised the pipes at the house I grew up in weren't constantly exploding. I think I was in college when I realized that Mario and Luigi are plumbers. I thought they just went and up down these tubes just because that was the theme of the game. Narwhals are real animals. I thought they were mythical like unicorns. That players on American sports teams do not all originally come from the area where their team is from. Second comment because apparently I'm stupid. When I was getting my license on my 16th birthday, the lady at the DMV asked me if I wanted to register as an organ donor. My mom said, yes, and I was horrified. I thought, until 16 years of age, that being an organ donor meant that, if someone needed your organ, that they would contact you to come in and they would kill you. It wasn't until I was about 20 that I discovered that you're supposed to add water to condensed soup. Very vividly remember eating condensed tomato soup in my dorm room without any water, so was essentially eating ketchup. How you can flip down your rear view mirror at night. In college I used to flip that thing all the time, and one time my roommate goes, "Why are you always flipping that?" It took me 18 years to realize shampoo goes before conditioner. I always wondered why my hair felt silky smooth before I used the shampoo. I thought all tombstones had cause of death on them, like old-timey ones. Rip must have meant that got ripped to death somehow. The world was scary.